Dylan Mangel here with Nebraska Extension, and today I'm out here looking at soybean fields that look like sudden death syndrome. So let me just turn this around. What we're seeing here, I'm out in one of our research trials. It's actually our TAPS program, where we've got basically a yield competition for growers to compete growing different soybean with different management practices. It's a really exciting program, but what we've got is basically a variety trials, different seed treatments, different management, insecticides, different options for them. And what we have is different levels of sudden death syndrome across this field. So just a little close-up on the problem we're seeing. You can see the leaves, just kind of like that triazole injury I showed before us. This on the upper part of the plant. First, we're seeing these foliar symptoms showing up. It's throughout the plant. As those plants show that symptom further, they're dropping their leaves. Here's a plant from a different earlier part of the field that's dropped leaves already. And if you look at the base, we've got a root system that's really not healthy. I pulled this out of the ground. A lot of the roots that were there stayed behind. And if you look closely, hopefully you can see it. There's that blue growth on the roots. This is something I don't always see. I've seen it on trips to other states, but in Nebraska, it's just a symptom I rarely see, is that root symptom, or that blue growth on the roots. Often it's more white. I don't know if it's just because there's different isolates of SDS in different states, you know, difference in different areas, but this one's showing it. So that could be a varietal interaction. It could be a number of things, but it's here. Here's another one I pulled that seemed to show it pretty well. And as they've been out of the ground a little bit longer and they're drying out, it's starting to look more white. But when I pulled that, it was definitely blue. Now I split this stem open inside. This, as it dries down, is a little bit harder to tell, but you can see the pith of that looks pretty healthy. The cortex, or the outer part of this stem between the pith and the exterior of the plant, it's looking a little bit milkier or chalkier, just not generally healthy. And then the roots themselves, there's not much to work with there for needing water. So if you look out at this field, I'll hold it up, you can kind of see patches where there's sudden death syndrome and patches where they're not. Notice this field's not flat. There's a low area. That seems to be where it is the worst. I rated this field in the spring for seedling disease. Really didn't see any, but an important component is we had flooding in this area early in the year. Got a lot of rain, like a 6-inch rain. It came up. This field was really wet when it was planted. It's also an irrigated field when we need irrigation. And so basically we had wet roots. We have had a lot of wet roots. This was planted wet. For some reason, the seedling disease didn't show up, but sudden death syndrome did show up later in the season. It's going to be really interesting when we tease this data apart to see which seed treatments that were in here happened to help with that, which didn't. And a big thing with sudden death syndrome is variety. Variety plays a big role. So some varieties are just naturally going to do better than other varieties. This field also had some Phytophthora. Getting rained on a little bit here too today, but it had some Phytophthora, and that was also correlated with variety. We have several different resistance genes represented in this field, so that'll be interesting to see how those worked out as well. Again, this is Dylan Mangel with Nebraska Extension. If you have any other questions about plant disease, reach out to myself or go online to cropwatch.unl.edu.